Hi guys, welcome to the Gun Shop with me, John. Today we're going to be looking at this, the Marocchi Evo Black. Let's open it up and have a look. But before we do so, it is the same plastic case as a Caesar Guerini. How exciting is that? Except it says Marocchi on it, obviously. Comes with two combination locks. When you open it up, you have a barrel on fore end, a stock, and some chokes. I believe, this being the demo gun, it doesn't have the warranty paperwork in there, but it does come with warranties and instructions as well. With a nice blue velveteen lining. Ooh. Let's take it apart, put it together, and have a little look at it, shall we? So before we get into the gun, we're going to have a little look at the chokes, which are one of the nicest things about this gun. There's something a bit synergy-esque about them, so you might forgive us for a little bit of choke porn later. Very, very nice. I believe they are called the Maxi 90 chokes. How exciting are they for a thing? But it's nice that they come with them. It also comes with a choke key and an Allen key for adjusting your adjustable trigger. So before we move on to anything else on this gun, let's have a quick word about Marocchi. Marocchi have been making guns for nearly 100 years, since 1922 in fact, so they know a thing or two about making guns, and as such this gun is actually fairly well composed. I will at some point towards the end get into the things I dislike about the gun, of which there are a few, but I think you can afford to be picky when something isn't quite as mainstream, because I'm not going to upset so many people. Anyway, starting at the back, we have a 15mm pad. I believe this is the sporting variant. On the trap variant, you have a 20mm pad. The pad is really quite hard and isn't going to give you much recoil protection, but it is actually extremely well fitted, hand-fitted to the gun no less. The stock is a grade 2 walnut. And it's quite nice. They come out very much honey coloured, as far as I've seen. I haven't actually seen any dark ones, and it does come cut with an adjustable comb. The adjustable comb is a real simple one, just with 2 Allen keys, and we'll pull it off and have a little look inside that right now. Oh, that's on there tight. I'm just going to knock this down a little bit because it is high. So that pops off, and that gives you your internal pieces. You've got lines, so you've got a little bit of memory there. Yeah, the hardware is not the nicest thing in the world, but you know, you're not paying for extortionate engineering technology on your cheek piece here, which is fair enough. One thing I will say before anything, when setting one of these up, you need to put a bit of face cast on as standard. These stocks are unbelievably straight. Unbelievably straight. Whether that's a good thing or not, obviously, is more gun fit reliant. However, they are just unbelievably straight, and the blade of the comb is quite thick. So, personally, if I was buying one of these, oh Christ, that's very far across, I'll probably get it cast before going anywhere. So as you can see, the actual blade of the comb is very thick, and with a stock with no cast, that makes for an immensely over straight gun, to be fair. So let's just pop that on there. The beauty of the adjustable comb actually is that you can actually change the pitch a little bit easier. You can with certain other guns, which is nice. It's a little bit looser and doesn't take any cranking at all. Once it's bitten up very well. Moving on, the actual hull profile of this stock is very thin. It is quite streamlined, which is nice. And it's got a very, very open grip with no palm swell. For a gun that is supposed to be kind of a dedicated hardcore sporter, there's a real step back in time, almost to the sort of Browning GTI era in terms of feel. Not quite as nice, but I am a Browning GTI fanboy, obviously. The overall length of pull is only 14¼ and obviously being a lanky lad, that doesn't work for me too well. However, if you need a 14¼ inch stock, then this is a great gun for you. I think certainly in terms of an improvement on future models, I think they should make it longer, or certainly longer in the wood with a different pad system. To put a 15mm pad on a gun with a 14¼ inch stock, it's a brave move. It's more of a trap style perhaps than anything else, but that's fairly Italian, as we all know. Laser checkered, but in a fairly nice double point pattern. Anyway, we'll move on from the stock. The wood metal fit isn't too bad around the top tang, and around the bottom tang it is all fairly flat. There's a couple of, I was going to say panel gaps, but I suppose that's the best way of putting it. There's a couple of parts on this gun that perhaps I would have liked to see finished slightly better, but in the grand scheme of production level mid-range guns, this gun retails, I believe, at 1945 quid full retail. It's actually exceptional looking around the actual headwork. Obviously you're allowed to pick holes, that's why we're here. This is the black action. There is a nickel action as well, and it is just a plain black action with a hand-inked blue Evo with a swirly line. Very, very nice, and a tiny little, very classy done actually, little Marocchi stamp there. It's a Boss style action, but mostly just slimmed down, and so it works. It's extremely reliable as they go. Let's close her up. Obviously, manual safety, selector on the top there, with the trigger having a 3-position, 3-preset trigger. And obviously you can set it more or less wherever you want. On the bottom you have the Marocchi logo with Marocchi Evo etched into the black and made in Italy, because it is obviously made entirely in Italy. Let's move on. The forend pulls off on a pull lever and is the Schnabel sort of style. It's not too refined, but it's quite nice. You know, it's not horrible looking actually. It's very, very sharp. It's just, there's quite a lot of wood there. Not that this is a bad thing, just an observation. The beaver tail one is available on the trap guns. However, the trap guns, you're limited in terms of them being A, more weight, and B, they do less barrel lengths. In the trap it is a 30-inch and 30-inch alone. This gun comes in 28, 30 or 32 in the sporting. On their advert, surprisingly, it actually says their border, I think, 18.5, 18.6. This one, however, is stamped at 18.4. Whether that's interesting or not is very much up to you. I would say 18.4 is a really nice old school bore. It's going to kick a little bit more perhaps than a modern 18.6, but that's fine. It does have the Marocchi smooth boring barrels, which sounds a little like a dating profile, but smooth boring, which you're kind of happy with because it's not a rifle, it's a shotgun. But that's great. Essentially, smooth boring is their brand name or their word for having elongated forcing cones, which is cool. It only runs on a 70mm chamber, which really makes it a very dedicated sporter nowadays, which should, having not put on these over paper, give you slightly better performance than a 3-inch chamber. Potentially. Whether what that means or not, I don't know, but generally speaking, it's a nice little thing that says, I am a sporting gun, I am a sporter, and that is it. On the top here, you have a plain black top lever. Underneath you have the serial number and a little rough area of etching. I'm not even sure what it's about. I think it's more of a style thing, but it looks quite nice. That leads you into your parallel 10mm rib. Again, there is something quite almost sort of 25, 30-year-old in fashion about this gun that it really lends itself to me somehow. And that is finished with a little red fibre optic sight on your 2 external chokes. If they'd put internals in there, you really could have mistaken this from a gun made 30 years ago. Again, I don't think that's a particularly bad thing. Pulling the forend off, we can have a little look at the way this gun is locked up. Oh Christ, broke cardinal rule then. Soft surface, clearly. Locks up on a single bottom bite. Really good ejection system, and these things are really fierce on ejection, which is fairly handy. So my final observation is that you have vented mid and a vented top rib. However, your top rib is actually really low profile to your barrels. Whether that makes it shoot any better, I don't know. Obviously that really has to relate into the way the stock is designed, but there's only one way to find that out, and we will go and shoot this at a later date. Alright, let's zoom out and have a little feel of how it handles and a bit of an overview. Before we move on to conclusions, I should say that this gun weighs in at just about £7.10. So there's quite a lot of gun here, and it balances just under a 1/4 inch in front of the hinge pin, which, to be fair, isn't bad for a short stock gun. It has a few things I haven't pointed out. It has this lovely smooth monoblock action, and the actual machining quality on this gun is immense. The barrels are hand polished and the bluing quality is pretty exceptional. The trigger pulls are probably one of the best trigger pulls I've felt in a very, very long time on any gun less than sort of £5,000 or £6,000. So there's a lot of really good stuff about this gun. I think price point wise is where it's difficult. I think if this gun was cheaper, it would be really, really easy to sell, and if it was slightly more expensive, perhaps it would be a little bit easier to sell, kind of ironically. What it is parked right next to a Silver Pigeon or adjustable or a 686 Evo, which is a hard market. So this is exactly what you're comparing it against. Obviously you're getting a lot more features here. I think you're getting a nicer gun. There's a lot about it I really like. However, there's just something I can't put my finger on. And I think I really like it. I think there's only one way to find out, and that is to go and shoot it rather extensively. However, with the shortness of stock, it's just not fair for me to do so. So I think David's actually going to take this one out and give it a proper field test. It should be really nice. Purely based on the fact that they've taken a lot of old guns that aren't made anymore and gone, well, people used to love those, let's make something kind of similar. And as such, it handles perfectly neutral. You know, it takes no effort to put where you want, and actually that's perfect. I can't help feeling like it's just a little bit too good to be true. Before finishing, I should say there's a little bevel on the right hand side of this trigger guard here, so you're not going to catch your finger on it, and that's a nice little feature. But I'm left undecided. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What we will do probably is a little shooting overview of this. We'll have a little bit of footage of Dave shooting it, and see how we get on. And that was everything from me. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Goodbye, and we'll see you next time. As a third conclusion, just before I put this away, I think this is a real difficult one. In terms of market placement, going up against price-wise with a lighter Beretta or Browning is really difficult. I think giving guns like this a chance takes a bit of bravery from a buying perspective. You don't know what you're going to get second hand for it. It's more of an unknown quantity. And I think that's where companies like this sometimes go wrong or struggle. However, it's kind of pleasant to have something that's just a little bit out of the ordinary. And I think that's what I should have said about it. This is not any ordinary sporter. There you go. You've had 6 conclusions on this one. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.